professional wrestler to CG Scorpion to serious actor.
We've seen it 1,000 times.
And we'll see it 1,000 more. This is We Have Concerns. Hi, Jeff Canada.
Hi, Anthony Carboni.
Hello, concerned citizens.
Speaking of movies, Anthony.
Sure, which we were. And if you are not a patron, you did not hear that conversation, but you could. Patreon.com/We Have Concerns.
What, $3 to hear that conversation?
And all the other ones. Don't worry, it's not just for that conversation.
You get so many.
You get all of our conversations. It's not like we don't think any conversation we have is worth $3.
Yeah, no, but all the cumulatively.
But cumulatively, all of my life's work is maybe worth $3.
Anyway, speaking of movies, Anthony, you like a Star Wars.
I have been known to like a Star Wars, yes.
My understanding is that you are, in some circles, synonymous with the Star Wars.
I was briefly enlisted in the Star Wars. Yes.
You were drafted into the Star Wars.
Yes, I'm in the Star Wars. I'm in the Star Wars reserves. I do a couple weekends a month and then 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I also understand you like you don't discriminate against the Star. You'll take a Trek. You enjoy a Star Trek?
I fucking love a Trek.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I got a lot of, listen, we can't go there, but I got a lot of opinions because there's a lot of Trek lately.
Well, I'm not, those new Picard trailers.
I got a lot of opinions about a lot of Trek.
Yeah. They're literally throwing everybody back. They're like, you want a Guinan? We got Guinan for you. You want Q? Yeah, we got Q for you.
Hey.
You want some data? We got it. We got it all for you.
Hey, listen. Like I said, this is a digression and we don't want to go too far into it, but can we just say, out of everybody from the Next Gen cast, did you have your money on John Delancey being the Silver Fox? I was looking at that Picard season 2 trailer and I was like,
he pulls it off, doesn't he? He pulls it off.
He is a hot old guy.
Yeah.
More so than any of them, which is crazy. You wouldn't have seen that coming.
Yeah.
But I do like a war and I do like a Trek.
More like screw. No, that didn't really work.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I was trying something.
Hey, man.
We're digressing again.
I'm trying to pull us out of this.
Hey, so my point is,
what's your point?
You like the Star Wars, you like the Star Trek. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I love me a space epic. But the problem we've always had throughout history with our space epics, they're not really filmed in space.
No.
Not really filmed in space, Anthony.
You're going to make me talk about this. No. We talked about this for 2 minutes on the morning show, and I got so mad.
That's why I want to bring it up. Because that's what I like doing. I like winding you up and then seeing what happens.
No, Jeffrey. Okay, go ahead. Tell the kids.
Well, all that's going to change, kids, because there's some stuff happening right now. In fact, there is going to be a film studio.
Absolutely not.
In space.
No.
It is going to be called the Space Entertainment Enterprise, or SEE, for short, SEE. Planned completion date December 2024 for the module that will be built on the International Space Station and then separated from the ISS in 2028. It will exist 250 miles above Earth, and it will be a site to explicitly host films, television, music, sporting events. Folks will be able to go to space, content creators who want to develop, produce, record, broadcast, and live stream from Space.
Listen to me very carefully. Listen to me very, very carefully. This is a company that is working with Timothy Cruise on his next sci-fi movie.
That's right.
And this this absolutely bonkers human being that we have not just normalized but deified said,
he's the best of us.
Said,
that is true.
No, it's not. No, it's not. He said, these movies is dumb because we don't really do them in space. I'm not doing it unless we got to do it in space. It's time to do them in space now. And like everybody was just like, sure, Tom, let's figure this out. NASA's on board. This thing is going to be docked to the ISS while it goes through all of its initial everything. They're going to make sure, just like the Russian space station was. They are going to dock it to the ISS, make sure everything is operational. It's all good. It's functioning. Everything's great. And then Tom Cruise's little fucking satellite just gets to fly off into space and orbit our planet. And Elysium is real. And I know that's a Matt Damon movie and I'm mixing my movies, but you're
mixing your
Tom Cruise.
Muscle-bound stars.
Tom Cruise is building a movie studio in space and I have to pay for my own KN95 masks. We don't have any money for anything. But Tom Cruise gets a movie studio in space.
Okay, well, I don't want to get too far down this road. Where we
talked for 5 minutes about Hot John Delancey. This is the story you brought up, and you didn't think it was going to go down this road?
Well, I don't want to get too far down the road with being not completely factually correct, because you are correct in that the genesis of this idea was the fact that Tom Cruise is making a space movie in space. And the company that is co-producing that movie is called Axiom Station or Axiom Entertainment. And Axiom Entertainment got the approval to make Axiom Station, which is the first commercial wing of the International Space Station. They got approval for that back in 2020. So basically, there's a part of the International Space Station, which is a general works project, a government entity. Part of that now is commercialized. So Axiom Station is a module on the ISS that is commercially owned. And they are renting space or donating space, who knows? But they are letting Tom Cruise and Doug Liman make a movie in that thing. Now, that is not what I'm talking about.
They're sending the director of Swingers to space.
Yeah. Space Swingers. So that, because that's happening, that has now prompted another company to partner with Axiom.
Yeah, we need another company involved. We need to make this even bigger. Yeah.
This company is called SEE.
Yeah.
Space Entertainment Enterprise. It is, you're going to love this. The co-founders, Dmitry and Elena Lesnevsky. They are Russian millionaires who, I can't remember what they did before this, but it was a crazy thing.
Why would I love that?
Because
I love Russians.
You love
because of my Russian fetish.
Yes. Yeah. You know how every time I say Dmitry Lesnevsky, you get excited?
It's like, ooh, that's a Russian name. I better tell Anthony.
Yeah. You love it. You love it.
What a weird thing. You're going to love this. And then he just names two Russian people.
Well, it's not, it's Tom Cruise partnering with the Russians to make a space project.
Fuck this whole thing.
Yeah. So anyway, two different companies. Axiom, they're docking with the commercial Axiom module of the International Space Station.
Sure.
So it is in partnership with Axiom, but it is a completely different company. This is going to be called the SEE-1. And they think that they're going to be able to make not only movies and TV shows up there that take place in space, because it's not going to be in space. It's going to be in low Earth orbit, right? So they'll have reduced gravity, not zero gravity, but still much more authentic, a little verisimilitude for your space fiction.
For what? For what?
But not only that, I think the more interesting part is they think they're gonna do like concerts and shit on it.
For who? For what?
Well, don't you want to see Foo Fighters in Zero G?
Hey,
Or close to Zero G?
Hey, Jeff?
Yeah.
You and I aren't going to those concerts.
No, I don't think anybody's going. I think they are concerts that are happening in space and
They
beamed
want
back
part
to
of that.
Earth.
They want part of the SEE to be space tourism. They want part of that to be a wing of it to be space tourism. They want people to go into space and have dinner with Tom Cruise and Doug Liman in low Earth orbit, and the cheapest insurance I can get is $400 a month. That's what they want.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
No,
they looked around and they said,
"Yeah,
this is the thing that we talk about all the time with these auteurs and these studios that have too much money, where it's like, you remember how we talked about how for the last 5 years, James Cameron has just been dunking Sigourney Weaver in a tank." And just forcing her to stay underwater for like
trying to drown Sigourney Weaver.
He's basically just trying to drown Sigourney Weaver. And like, because he can't fake the underwater scenes in Avatar, which is an animated film. So, and then you have your Christopher Nolans who are like, look, I want to direct a new movie, but I'm just too bored to unless you build me a giant rotating building. What? In the London riverbed, I want a giant rotating building that costs billions, and I want to shoot it with the cameras that were invented to shoot space. Okay, man, if that's what it takes. Oh, and also, everybody should mumble. We know how you love that. Sure, whatever you need. And so, Tom Cruise says,
you take 4 seconds to name your protagonist, Chris? Sure. His name is Protagonist. All right.
Get fucked. Okay. And so it's like, well, we don't see any problem because we know that as artists, the most important thing right now is that our space scenes look fake, and people can't believe that. Is that really, with your sensitive creative artist soul, that's the worst problem you could think of that needs solving right now? Is gravity didn't look real enough to you? That's the problem.
I'm going to take the opposite view on this, Anthony. I am sick of pretending, you know?
Every suspension of disbelief. No, I can't.
I shan't.
Every time I look and I go, that guy's not really in space.
That guy's not in space.
And it ruins the whole movie for me.
Yeah.
When I watch the Fast films and they don't drop real cars out of real planes, I can tell, and it ruins the movie for me.
I need Patrick Stewart to visit this place if he wants to play Jean-Luc Picard again. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, please don't. They're all in their 70s. Don't make them live up there. It's very dangerous.
I think he's in his late 80s, if not 90s. He's old.
It's tough to tell with him because he looked 40 when he was 20. He's one of those.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true. I love this. I think this is amazing.
Hey,
I want to see space movies filmed on location.
If we were living in better times right now, I'd probably have a different outlook on this. I probably would have a different outlook on this. Right now, all I can think about is just the waste of it all. And not just the waste of it all. I can also think about the fact that not only does NASA have to just shut up and fucking let Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos do shit just to stay running. We have to let Jeff Bezos put on his novelty fucking cowboy hat and go into space for 8.5 minutes and do as much damage to the environment as 1 million humans will in their lifetime. Because otherwise, NASA just run out of money. Right? Yeah. They just run out of money. Sorry, no more NASA.
Got to sell it to Bezos.
No more NASA. And so the fact that it's now like Tom Cruise wants to go into space and he wants to bring the director of Swingers with him. It's like, all right, man, whatever it takes to keep this thing running, I guess. We're the only people that can tell when an asteroid's heading towards Earth, so I suppose we should keep the lights on.
Yeah, you know what the funniest thing about this is that I guarantee you that this thing is just going to be all green screens. It's going to be a room in space that has green screens.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is because they're going to want people to look like they're floating, but it's not just going to be for like space movies. It's going to be like, we want Thor to fight a Skrull midair, right? And so it's like, and we want it to look as cool and real as possible. So we're gonna have Chris and Ben Mendelsohn punching each other in zero gravity because it looks real that way. But then
it doesn't matter.
But then we're going to composite the city of New York behind them.
Yeah, exactly. No, you know what's going to happen first up there? You know, of course, Tom Cruise is going to make his movie.
Listen, nothing can stop that. Something I've learned in my lifetime. You can say there are things that you can say with a certainty, and I will tell you this with a certainty. Tom Cruise will make his movie.
He will make his movie. But then after that, you know what the first thing that's going to be made up there is a fucking Pepsi commercial. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be Pepsi commercials and music videos is what it's going to be. There's not going to be an awesome space epic. You're not going to make Gravity 2 up there. Alfonso Cuarón isn't going up there. It's going to be some 20-something commercial director that's like, we're going to make the most kick-ass Pepsi commercial about how space is really the most woke place.
Do you remember when the average, like everybody, it became a thing that everybody knew about was the Vomit Comet, the plane that you can go on and have like moments of weightlessness?
Apollo 13, right?
Yeah, they did Apollo 13, but then like, do you remember how many music videos and shit were done up there and how many YouTubers they put on that plane?
Yeah.
And like OK Go did a video up there because OK Go was like, fuck, we don't.
That OK Go video is good though. That's a cool video.
Every OK video is good. Every OK Go video was good. They trapped themselves.
They did.
They couldn't just make a music video. They were like, fuck, we got to
They had to spend a year and a half. Do you see that one where they're in the car and it rolls past all the flaps that make the sounds for like an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
That was a good OK Go video too.
It's fucking, yeah.
This is going to be OK Go video central up here.
Do you think I know Avatar, Jeff, you like Avatar.
I love Avatar.
What is the current release date for Avatar 2?
It's this December.
This December.
2022.
Okay. Yeah. But Avatar 3 is going to be shot up there, right?
I mean, I think he already shot all of it. I think they're all underwater. You know, Cameron's like, I did space. I got to go deeper. You know, I got to go. It's
listen, here's one thing that I do love about James Cameron. We've talked about this before. That dude loves the ocean. He's an asshole, but man, he loves the ocean and he just gives so much money to oceanographic research and stuff like that. Yeah. And just like, well, at least we have that. Dude loves an ocean.
Nice. He loves an ocean. He wants to make sure the ocean is nice.
Yeah.
And you know, Tom Cruise is an odd bird, to say the least. And you know, he's probably going to make a movie that kills him, right? His intention is to die doing what he loved, I
think he wants to. Honestly, I think he wants to.
Yeah.
I think he genuinely and this is me just pop psychology of celebrities and it's stupid and it's garbage and don't do what I'm doing. But I genuinely believe he wishes for like one of those giant turbines or something to just like end
just
it.
To eat him.
You know what I mean? I think he's hoping I think he's hoping the last thing he sees is Christopher McQuarrie going, did we
Tom?
He wants to see.
Yeah, I think
that's all he wants.
His final act will be, you know, like the scene in Mission Impossible 12 where what's his name of his character? Ethan Hunt has to be shot into the sun. And he's like, you know, audiences just won't buy it unless you shoot me directly into the sun. The audiences just won't buy it. They can tell that it's fake unless you shoot me into the sun. And Christopher McQuarrie is going to be like, I will, whatever you want, Tom. Let's do this.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to be sitting at a big table full of like studio executives and stuff. And the studio executives are going to be like, that's great. Like, you can't even do that, blah, blah, blah. But he and Christopher McQuarrie are going to lock eyes, and Christopher McQuarrie will just like nod, knowing that this is Tom saying it's time to go. It's time for him to return to where does Xenu live? A volcano? It's like underneath a volcano? I forget.
Something like that. I don't know.
I hate this for right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. I'm sympathetic to your point of view, but I'm not even joking, dude. Unironically, I love this.
I think it's cool.
I totally get the like wastefulness and just bonkers level of spending for very little return.
Well, every time they shoot a movie up there, it is going to be like as expensive and wasteful and detrimental to the environment as Jeff Bezos' 9-minute space fun time.
Oh, yeah. No, this is a terrible, terrible idea. And yet, there's part of me that's like, yeah, man, let's just, if we're Rome right now, let's just get as opulent as we can. For my 2 hours of entertainment, for me to be like, what else is on? What else is on Netflix? For Netflix to like give me 3 seconds to put on the next thing after I absorbed the fact that human beings went into space only to create this fictional story for me, like there's something that's just chef's kiss beautiful about the pure audacity of that,
Yeah, no. In that level, so here's the thing. Here's what I will say, because I see where you're coming from. And here's what I will agree with. If I know for certain this is the end of civilization as we know it, things always continue, life finds a way, et cetera, et cetera. But if this is the end of this epoch of humankind, I do want to see all of the wildest stuff before I go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to miss the wildest stuff. If this is the end, I want all of the craziest shit to happen so I can at least sigh and shake my head and go, I knew it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd hate to leave this earth and leave my one human life with uncertainty about whether we turn it around or not. I would like to see us either turn it around, or I would like to see space movies until it's all over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah, either we buckle down and really pull up our bootstraps and decide we want to survive, or let's just ride the bomb down going, yeehaw, the whole way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Okay, listen, here's the thing. This is bad, but if they do it, they do it. If we're smart, we'll stop it, and I'll feel a lot better. But if this happens, because I think they said they're targeting like 2028 or something like that.
2028 for it to be separated off of the ISS, yeah.
If this actually happens by 2028, that's the signal, everybody. It's time to go buck wild. If that happens by 2028, it's time. It's time to just do whatever you feel.
Yeah. At that point, I want an entire subgenre of movie. I want like the weightless space rom-com. I want weightless space, like kind of boring My Dinner with Andre talkie,
Oh my God. Send Wallace Shawn to space.
Send Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory to space, you cowards.
Let them have a 10-course meal in space, cowards.
My Dinner with Andre in space needs to happen.
Send somebody up there and have them shoot the most boring, simple indie film possible. I love it. I love that. Hey, nothing matters and everything's wasteful. So you know where you should spend some of your money?
With us. Hey, I got to thank A. Tomlinson for posting this story in the Discord. The Discord is the number one place Anthony and I look for science stories. There's a whole bunch of science stories posted that don't make it into episodes, but are still really fascinating, really interesting. It's an amazing resource that our community has come together to give the most thought-provoking, coolest stories they have a place right on our Discord. And that's just one of a dozen different cool threads, cool topics that you can talk about with like-minded folks in our Discord. And joining the Discord is only $1 every month. It just seems like a ridiculously low number.
It's the lowest number of whole dollars you can have.
Yeah, we looked into it.
I mean, obviously you could have $0, but that's an imaginary number, and I don't deal in that.
It's not a whole number.
I don't deal in that shit.
We're all about integers here.
Yeah. So head to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns and put an integer into entertainment. Put the integer in entertainment is what we like to say because we're good at marketing.
It is what we like to say.
We say it nonstop. Hey, do you like Back to the Future?
Yeah, I love Back to the Future.
Yeah, it's a good movie, right?
Yeah.
This dude, Justin Berg, by the way, watched Back to the Future. He says at least 25 times, and also 25 times all the DVD special features, stuff like that. Just loves Back to the Future. It's his favorite movie.
Cool.
Yeah, good for him, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about Justin Berg.
Mm-hmm.
He's a professor of organizational behavior at the Stanford Graduate School of Business.
Okay. So feel like he doesn't have enough time to see Back to the Future that many times, but maybe does.
Yeah, well, I feel like he's just a suit that mentions that he loves Back to the Future, so he can talk to all the cools. There's nothing the cools love more than Back to the Future. That movie from 1985.
Cool. Yeah. You can spot the cool because they'll be wearing the puffy vest with no sleeves.
Doesn't your dear friend, nemesis, and co-host of DLC, Christian Spicer, have that jacket?
The Marty McFly jacket?
Yeah, I thought he had the Marty McFly jacket.
It's certainly possible.
He definitely has the hat. I've seen him wear the hat. Anyway, Back to the Future is a good movie. A lot of people love it. Justin Berg was like, I think one of the things that made Back to the Future work is the fact that Robert Zemeckis, who co-wrote and directed the film, was there the entire time, from start to finish. It was his idea.
As opposed to other directors who just phone it in?
Well, no, but I don't mean just on set. I mean, he wasn't handed the script for Back to the Future.
Right. Yeah. It was his idea. He co-wrote the script. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. If he had been handed a screenplay, we've seen what happened. Robert Zemeckis has been handed screenplays.
Yeah.
Do we like the movies that I mean, here's the thing.
Polar Express.
Robert Zemeckis got a little tied up into some tech stuff. We've talked about that before. He got a little too forest for the trees. But
if he had been around at the genesis of Beowulf, maybe that Beowulf movie would have been better, right?
Well, so that's the thing. Justin Berg studies specifically creativity and innovation, which I find something interesting. And I always find it interesting that when schools of economics and schools of business study creativity and innovation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There is such thing as business creativity and innovation, but I always find it so funny, the idea of trying to quantify these sorts of things at a business
school. It's a bit like making a right-handed person sign with their left hand.
Yeah. Why just study the business part? That's what you're there for. Most of the research, Justin Berg says that most of the research on implementing creative ideas focuses on how people win support for their ideas from others. I have an idea. How do I explain it? How do I get people excited about it? How do I get people to jump on board with me for this creative idea? That's what most people study about creativity, right? Because one of the hardest things to do is to explain your vision for something to other people. But not a lot of people study building a creative idea into a final product. Not a lot of people figure out what is the best way to do that and what is the best environment for doing that. So what he did was he looked at the most creative industry in the world right now.
Pottery.
Big budget Hollywood films.
Oh, man. We got a themed episode, do we?
Yeah, we
got
do.
A themed episode?
Yeah, we do. Well, I had a
Look at
couple
this.
that I was thinking about doing, and I was like, this is the one.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I don't think it's just shooting the movie in space that's going to do it, Doug Liman, director of Swingers. And he studied 25,000 films, whittled it down to about 5,700, and they were looking for movies that had credited roles that differentiated who was involved in the different stages of creating the film. So you've got like your pre-production, your production, your post-production, your marketing, things like, you know what I mean? It's all divided up.
Sure.
So it was the generation of the idea, the elaboration of the idea, and the execution of the idea. And then they were
This
like,
guy just really wanted to write off his IMDb Pro account.
that's what it was. That's what it was. And, he put his headshot up there. He's not working in films, but he put it up there because he's like, I don't know. Couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt.
Maybe somebody's looking for an associate, somebody who looks like an associate producer or an associate professor of marketing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, they took all of these films and then they matched each film with like aggregate critic score, also box office, things like that, to see, does somebody have to have, do you need this sort of creative iconoclast, this Robert Zemeckis who's going to stick around from the genesis of an idea all the way through its execution to really have a creative thing work? Or can you do these baton handoffs at different stages to equally creative and brilliant people and still have just as big a success that is just as critically acclaimed?
His goal is to determine whether it's useful, whether it is more advantageous to nurture an idea from gestation through completion.
Exactly. Does the idea of the auteur have weight? Right?
Right.
Does the idea of the one person who is the creative visionary or whatever have weight? Now, lately we've been talking about that, the creative visionary and the auteur can lead to some really garbagey behavior in garbagey places, right? You might try to drown Sigourney Weaver for multiple years.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Or we might have like a Joss Whedon situation.
Right. People
Nobody
who
wants
feel
that.
people who think the project is part of them identify with it. This is a part of who I am, and so it has to be done exactly the right way. That can cause people to exhibit some really gross behavior.
That megalomania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you're thinking of Megamind, which was a great movie, very collaborative.
Wasn't the sequel Megalomania? Or those are just the fans of Megamind?
Those are just the fans of Megamind.
Where are my megalomaniacs at? Woo!
Yeah, we just meet up once a month and we talk about Megamind. So what Justin Berg says is there's actually been study of this in like medicine, the idea of like handing off the idea of like, chemistry and medical procedures or things like that. There's been a lot of like handing off projects like that.
Let me kind of work through my intuitions on this, because from an artistic perspective, I tend to just sort of intrinsically value folks like the Quentin Tarantinos, the writer directors, the folks that are like, this is my idea. I have a very specific vision for it. I want to make it, my way. I want to cast it. I want to, I'm going to write it. I'm going to make. I sort of instinctively feel like that is of value and feels more pure. And yet, when you bring up something like medicine or science or anything, I feel, well, it is very useful to have multiple perspectives, to challenge one's assumptions, to challenge that singular-minded vision and say, hey, let's poke the holes in your problem. Let's make sure you're not overlooking something that another perspective might reveal.
Right.
So I feel like I'm conflicted, and I don't know. I genuinely don't know which one, because I feel like they both have value. Both of those approaches have value.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, we've talked before about how I work better in a collaborative process, right? Like even if I come up with an idea, I like to hear what other people think about it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? Because you only have your own point of view.
Yeah.
And so other people's points of view can be very useful. Now on a larger scale creative project, how helpful is that, right? Like you're saying, is it more important to have your Quentin Tarantinos or whatever foot fetishist you want to put in charge there from the beginning, who can go, I see what you're saying, but this is not that.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea,
right.
but no, it doesn't fit into this. The rubric
right.
for what this is in my mind, right?
Yeah, right.
And I can tell you why what you're bringing up, even though it seems like a good idea, feels wrong. So it's very interesting, right? Because you're right. Like having extra pairs of eyes is very valued in other places like engineers, science, all of these things.
Yeah.
So the study was not just, does the handoff of a creative thing matter, but does the timing of the handoff matter?
Oh, interesting. At what point in the production is it most advantageous to let someone else take the reins?
Right. If you have the idea and you write the script, is it cool to hand it off to a director producer, right? Something like that. If you have the idea and you sort of make the idea happen, should you follow through with the idea? By the same token, I have the idea. Great idea. Let's hand it off to somebody very early on. Let's hand it off to this writer, and then this writer will hand it off to this director. What works? And what's very interesting is by studying, not just doing the IMDb study and looking at these correlations between creative teams and critical reception of films, they also had a bunch of different creative teams come up with different advertisements for soft pretzels made with cricket flour, which just sounds like they were double dipping into something else they had money invested in, if I'm honest.
He's like, hey, how can I get my IMDb Pro account as a write-off? Also, I got all this cricket flour in the other
I put
room.
all my money into cricket flour.
I went huge and hard into cricket flour. What the fuck am I going to do with it?
So they gave these different teams different creative processes to go through, right? In one, like a creative director just did the whole thing. In another one, it was like, okay, well, let's brainstorm the idea and then hand it off to a writer. All of these things. They wanted to put all this data together. And here's what they found. You can hand off a project. You can hand off a creative thing. And it doesn't necessarily hurt that thing. But the handoff cannot be late in the process.
Yeah, this is a Zack Snyder to Joss Whedon situation.
Yes. If you wrote it and you did all the work on what it's going to look like, don't hand it off to another director. Right?
Yeah. Don't hand it off to cross the finish line. It's not you got to see it through once you, do they have like a point of no return, a point past which it's just sort of generally late, or is it more specific than that?
So it's basically what they're calling the handoff of a mature idea. So a mature idea is something that's like somebody already feels psychological ownership over it. Somebody has already demonstrated a coherent vision. Somebody has already laid the groundwork and the rules. That's actually, you would think that's a great time to hand something off because it's like, here are the rules, here are the processes, here's how it all goes. Walk it,
Yeah, you'd think it'd be harder to screw it up when everything is sort of set.
Yeah. I'm literally handing it off and you just got to walk it over the last few yards and we're golden, right?
Yeah.
But that actually doesn't work.
But that tracks, right? Like anecdotally, that adds up because every time somebody comes in super late on a project, it feels like that project gets borked, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But they do say that, like, listen, sometimes you need to do it. And when that is, it's like, because we've also seen movies where like somebody's got to come in to fix it.
Right.
Because it's been going so poorly. Right.
Yeah.
Like somebody, oh no, you're a little out of your depth. It's not, the problem wasn't your idea or your vision. The problem is you just couldn't execute on it. So now we need to bring somebody in to execute.
Yeah.
And in that case, it will turn out better than it would have with this one person behind the reins the whole time. But that's just because the person didn't have the talent to do it. If the person had the talent, it would have been better,
Yeah.
under their, with them shepherding is what it says.
It seems like there's a point at which a number of decisions have been made that you sort of pointed in one direction. And if another mind comes in, another creative force comes in and wants to alter that, there's too much baggage of previously made decisions for them to effectively alter the course in any way.
Yes.
And so because all those decisions weren't made from their point of view, it's hard for them to adopt the point of view from which they were made. And so everything gets muddled.
Right. And a lot of it comes down to psychological ownership too. So the reason why an early handoff works is because if you're working in like in like a collaborative space, imagine like you're sitting down with a group of people trying to figure out the best way to do something, and you all throw your ideas in. And then you come up with like, okay, this is the best way to do this thing that we wanted to do. And then you hand it off to somebody because now it's a real project, right?
Right.
It's still early enough in the project where this person can take your ideas, develop ownership over them, think of the process, run it through, right? You sit down in
this
a room.
This is how writers' rooms work. That's how writers' rooms work.
The writers'
on TV shows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You sit down, you plan a season. You plan your major.
You just beat out an entire episode, and then one person goes away and writes it.
Right. And all TV writers will tell you, yeah, that's the episode I wrote, but we all wrote it. That's just the one that I get credit on because, and that is the best way to do things. If you have to work in a team creatively, the best way to do it is to come up with the work, figure out what the work is, what the creative ideas are, and then give those ideas to individual people to take control and ownership over.
So wait, so I understand the placement of the handoff in along the timeline of the project, but have we established whether it is beneficial to hand it off at all, or is it better to be an auteur?
They found that if it's handed off early, there is functionally no real difference between that and an auteur being in control. There might be, when you watch one of these movies, you might be able to feel a difference, but in terms of critical reception, in terms of like winning awards, in terms of making money, there is no difference. There might be some intrinsic thing, and I say that because I do, I work in creative spaces, so I don't want to take away that value of an artist, but functionally, everything's going to turn out fine either way.
But Berg's sort of thesis is that the ideal situation is auteur. Ideal situation is one person.
Auteur is no different than an early handoff.
An early handoff. Okay.
A late handoff is a problem. But what I'm saying is like you may be able to watch The Godfather and be like, oh, I can tell this is just one guy doing his thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, it maybe didn't do any better or doesn't have more fans than anything else.
Right. But Goodfellas was somebody writing the script, handing it to Martin Scorsese early, I think.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Scorsese. So
Mario Puzo wrote a book.
Mario Puzo wrote a book. He wrote the first draft of Superman the movie. It was 400 pages. These are the things I know. I had to get away from Scorsese. But I think this is interesting because
I do too.
I think there are two things that it shows. It's like there are two important things that I think people can take away, particularly if they're trying to do creative work. Number one, you don't have to be this person who sits in isolation and comes up with the brilliant, perfect idea. It is okay to bounce your idea off people. It is okay to collaborate and figure out what the idea is and how it's best. It's okay to get that little bit of help that gets you started. And I think it's also like, that's an important thing to know. And it's also an important thing to know that like, you can carry a creative thing over the finish line.
Right.
And if you're almost done, it's probably better for you to do it, even if you're tired, even if you're like, well, I don't know, maybe this just isn't for me anymore. Because that's the thing with me is I tend to be like, I get a little overwhelmed and I'm like, maybe I should just hand this off. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe it's not worth it.
Right.
But then 9 times out of 10, when you do that, the thing can fall apart or just not happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very interesting.
I love that you tend to bring in these, trying to quantify creativity stories, because I find them all very fascinating. And it's interesting when when we apply the scientific method to what we kind of assume to be ephemeral creativity,
Yeah.
What makes something good or bad or of quality in a creative space. I like applying data to that, it's interesting, but it's also interesting that it seems to me time after time, it kind of reinforces our intuitions, right?
Yeah.
Because I kind of felt, if you'd asked me beforehand, like, what's the best way to do it? I'd been like, well, it probably kind of sucks when you're almost done and then you give it to somebody else. And it's probably better to get an idea really early on and make it your own. And that's kind of what the data seems to point to, too.
The data says if somebody is almost done with a movie, don't send 15 executives into the editing bay to change the movie.
Right.
I think the reason I am interested in this quantifying creativity stuff is I think it's very important for people to understand that that creativity is a problem-solving skill more than it is what is it? Was it John Updike who was like, the muse appears as like a packet of legal papers with a deadline, something like that, Yeah. Where it's like, dude, no, there's no like, oh, I'm inspired and it's wonderful and it came out of nowhere and I'm just going to like, no, it's like if X then Y, how do I connect these two things? I have an idea about 100%. This. And like, it is a process. And if you work through the process, you can make something. And I think that's just so important. Demystifying creativity is important.
I love you describing it as a problem-solving process because it really, really is. It is how do I connect these two dots that are hard to connect? And you have to work at it and think at it and mull it over and shape it and look at it from different perspectives. And then the creativity comes from that. And you go, oh my gosh, this person was inspired. It's like, well, they had to fix something.
Yeah.
They had to fix something.
Yeah.
They this story didn't work. And so they kept working at it until they fixed it. And that has certainly been my experience in the creative arts as well. And I like that you put it that way. I think too few people think about it in those terms. I mean, it's really blue collar work, in a large sense.
Yeah. You sit down, you put in the work every day.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So yeah, hopefully you all found that interesting as well.
Yeah.
And if you did, go write a fucking book about it already. Go be creative.
Or give us $1 a month. That would be nice too.
Oh yeah. That's easier. Give us $1 a month for every month you don't write a book and every month you do.
Patreon.com/WeHaveConcerns.
See you next week.